Expand your vocabulary with our Core 2000 Words ebook. It's free and packed with essential expressions that you'll use on a daily basis. Start building your vocabulary today. Click the link in the description below to download your free Italian ebook before it's gone.
Welcome to ItalianPod101.com's Italiano in 3 minuti, the fastest, easiest and most fun way to learn Italian. Ciao, sono Consuelo, piacere. Hi, I'm Consuelo, nice to meet you. I've just introduced myself in Italian. In this lesson, you are going to learn how to introduce yourself in Italian. There are only 2 sentences to do it, but first, it is important to clarify that in Italian there's a difference between formal and informal speech. Let's now see how Italians introduce themselves in an informal situation, referring to tu, Italian for you. Ciao, sono Consuelo, piacere di conoscerti. Hi, I'm Consuelo, nice to meet you. Ciao, sono Consuelo, piacere di conoscerti. So, you just need to say, ciao, sono, add your name, and then piacere di conoscerti. Ciao, sono Consuelo, piacere di conoscerti. And now, let's see the same sentence during a formal situation, referring to lei, the Italian courtesy form for you. Buongiorno, sono Consuelo Innocenti, piacere di conoscerla. Buongiorno, sono Consuelo Innocenti, piacere di conoscerla. What has changed from the previous introduction? Let's take a look at this. Ciao has been substituted with the formal greeting buongiorno, Italian for good morning. Sono Consuelo has not been changed. Sono stands in both cases for I am. However, during a formal self-introduction, we also say our last name. Consuelo Innocenti are respectively my first and last names. Finally, the sentence piacere di conoscerla has switched conoscerti into conoscerla, since conoscerla is referred to lei, the Italian formal courtesy form for you. So, the formal way to introduce yourself is buongiorno, sono, here add your full name, and then piacere di conoscerla. Buongiorno, sono Consuelo Innocenti, piacere di conoscerla. If you use the correct sentence with Italians, they are definitely going to be impressed. So, ciao, sono Consuelo, piacere. Ciao a tutti, sono Consuelo. Hi everybody, I'm Consuelo and welcome back to ItalianPod101.com's Italiano in 3 minuti, the fastest, easiest and most fun way to learn Italian. In the last lesson, we learned how to introduce ourselves in Italian. As good manners are always a must, this time we are going to learn how to thank people. So, siete pronti? Are you ready? Cominciamo! Let's start! There are several ways to thank someone. Let's start with the easiest. It's just one word. Grazie. Grazie. Grazie means thank you. When saying thank you very much, you just need to add tante or mille, like grazie tante or grazie mille. Grazie tante or grazie mille. Tante means a lot and mille means 1,000. Thank you 1,000 times. During the last lesson, we mentioned both the formal and informal way of speaking Italian. If you want to be more formal when thanking someone, you should say la ringrazio. La ringrazio. That was the formal way to say thank you when referring to lei, the Italian courtesy form for you. Ringraziare is the infinitive form of the verb to give thanks, to be grateful. How to answer? It's easy. There are basically two different ways to do it. The first is prego. Prego means you're welcome. The other way to say you're welcome is the expression non c'è di che. Non c'è di che means there's nothing about it. So, when someone is saying grazie to you, we can simply reply with prego or non c'è di che. Sometimes we can say them both, like prego, non c'è di che. For example, if someone is giving you something, grazie mille.
Prego.
Now it's time for Consuelo's tips. Remember, when in doubt, when it is more appropriate to use grazie or la ringrazio, keep it simple is always your safest bet. If you're not sure whether to use the formal or casual version, you can always simply say grazie. So, grazie mille a tutti. Thank you very much, everybody. Do you know what arrivederci means? In the next lesson, you'll learn this and more greetings in Italian. Ciao, grazie, alla prossima lezione! Ciao a tutti, sono Consuelo. Hi everybody, I'm Consuelo and welcome back to ItalianPod101.com's Italiano in 3 minuti, the fastest, easiest and most fun way to learn Italian. In the last lesson, we learned how to be grateful saying grazie. Today, we learn some of the most common greetings used in Italy. Pronti? Are you ready? Allora, cominciamo! Let's start! The most used informal greeting is ciao. Ciao. Ciao means hi, hello, and goodbye. That's why we use it when we meet, but also when we leave. We should only use this greeting with relatives or friends. And now, let's talk about some more formal greetings. The one you're used to hear in Italy and at ItalianPod101.com is buongiorno. Buongiorno. Literally, buongiorno means good day. However, we could also interpret it as good morning or good afternoon. As a rule of thumb, we can use buongiorno only during the daytime from morning until evening. During the evening, we say buonasera. Buonasera. So, since sera obviously means evening, buonasera stands for good evening. Buongiorno and buonasera are used when we meet someone, but when we leave, we don't say them again. In this formal situation, Italians use arrivederci. Arrivederci. Arrivederci means goodbye. Finally, in Italian, we use the expression meaning see you soon, that can be considered both formal and informal. That is, a presto. A presto. Now, you can greet people in many different ways in Italian. Ciao. Ciao. Buongiorno. Buonasera. Arrivederci. Arrivederci. A presto. A presto. It's easy, isn't it? Now, it's time for Consuelo's tips. In formal situations, Italians commonly greet one another by shaking hands. On the other hand, If we meet someone we are very friendly with, we kiss each other on the cheek. Don't be afraid to do it with your Italian friends. It's normal. Ciao!
Ciao!
In the next lesson, we learn the meaning of the phrase parla inglese? Do you already know it? We'll be waiting for you in our next Italiano in 3 minuti lesson. Ciao, a presto, alla prossima lezione! Ciao a tutti, sono Consuelo. Hi everybody, I'm Consuelo and welcome back to ItalianPod101.com's Italiano in 3 minuti, the fastest, easiest and most fun way to learn Italian. In the last lesson, we learned the most common forms of greetings in Italian. We talked about greetings like ciao, buongiorno, buonasera, and so on. Today, we are going to learn a very useful phrase. Do you speak English? Using this phrase as opposed to speaking English to someone is important for many reasons. For one, if the person you're speaking to doesn't understand English, at least they'll be able to understand what you're saying. Furthermore, that you've made an effort to learn even a little bit of the language shows a lot of respect on your part. So, for these reasons and many more, we are going to cover this very important phrase. Are you ready? Allora, cominciamo! So, let's start! Now, here's the informal way to say it. Parli inglese? Parli inglese? In this sentence, the verb parlare, to speak, is inflected in the second singular person tu. You can easily recognize it from the ending part of the verb parli. To learn how to properly conjugate are verbs like parlare at the present indicative, please look at our Absolute Beginner series. You can find very detailed grammar lessons if you check upon ItalianPod101.com. But now, let's go back to parli inglese. Inglese is the adjective that means English. When asking the question, do you speak English in a formal situation, you should switch the verb parlare into the third singular person, lei. The result is parla inglese? This sentence could be very helpful if you're in trouble on the streets, in a restaurant, at a hotel. No matter where you are, whenever you need to talk to an English speaker, just ask, parla inglese? Adding scusi, excuse me, the sentence becomes more polite. Scusi, parla inglese? Scusi, parla inglese? The responses you will receive could be basically one of these three. Sì. Sì. Un po'. Un po'. No, non parlo inglese. No, non parlo inglese. Since this last one is a negative statement, we should say non before the verb. With io, Italian for I, the verb changes into parlo. That is why I do not speak is non parlo. Non parlo. Now it's time for Consuelo's tips. For those of you who are not only English speakers, you can obviously use this question with any language you need. Italians study other European languages at school, so maybe you get lucky. Just substitute inglese with francese for French, spagnolo for Spanish, and tedesco for German. In today's lesson, we mentioned scusi. In the next lesson, we'll learn these and other ways to apologize in Italian. It's never too late to show your good manners with Italian people. I'll see you in our next Italiano in 3 minuti lesson. Ciao, alla prossima lezione! Ciao a tutti, sono Consuelo. Hi everybody, I'm Consuelo. Welcome back to ItalianPod101.com's Italiano in 3 minuti, the fastest, easiest and most fun way to learn Italian. In the last lesson, we learned the phrase Scusi, parla inglese? Excuse me, do you speak English? We mentioned the word scusi, which means excuse me in formal Italian. Today, we are going to learn how to use scusi and other words when apologizing in Italian. Are you ready? Allora, cominciamo! Let's start! We should use scusi in formal Italian, such as when we are ordering something in bars or restaurants. For example, scusi, un caffè per favore. Scusi, un caffè per favore. We can also use it when asking a question. Scusi, dov'è il Colosseo? Scusi, dov'è il Colosseo? Sometimes we also hear people say mi scusi, which actually has the same meaning. We always use this phrase in formal speech. The informal way to say excuse me is scusa. Scusa. We can use scusa when asking a friend or a relative a question. For example, scusa, che ore sono? Scusa, che ore sono? Or when apologizing. Scusa, sono in ritardo. Scusa, sono in ritardo. Instead of scusa, we can also say scusami, which has the same meaning. Besides scusi and scusa, if we want to apologize for something, we may use mi dispiace, Italian for I am sorry, in both formal and informal situations. Someone might tell us mi dispiace in a formal situation. For example, the waiter of a restaurant could say mi dispiace ma I calamari sono finiti. Mi dispiace ma I calamari sono finiti. Or, in an informal situation, when you need to apologize to a friend, you could say mi dispiace per ieri. Mi dispiace per ieri. Now it's time for Consuelo's tips. Please remember that in Italy, if you accidentally bump into someone, we don't say I am sorry, mi dispiace. Instead, we say scusi, excuse me. My last tip for today is this. When you want to apologize in a deeper, more heartfelt way, you can add the adverb molto or tanto next to mi dispiace, saying mi dispiace molto or mi dispiace tanto. Hey guys, please tell me, are you able to count in Italian? What is the name of our lessons? Italiano in 3 minuti. You see, you already know a number. 3. 3. In the next lesson, we will learn the numbers in Italian from 1 to 10. 3, 2, 1, via! 3, 2, 1, go! We'll be waiting for you in our next Italiano in 3 minuti lesson. Ciao! Alla prossima lezione! Ciao a tutti, sono Consuelo. Hi everybody, I'm Consuelo. Welcome back to ItalianPod101.com's Italiano in 3 minuti, the fastest, easiest and most fun way to learn Italian. In the last lesson, we learned some words used when apologizing in Italian, including scusi and mi dispiace. Today, we are going to learn numbers. Are you ready? Allora, cominciamo! So, let's start. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now repeat after me. I'll say the numbers and give you time to repeat each one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great job! What is before uno? Do you know? It's the same as in English, but with a different pronunciation. Zero. Zero. You don't have any more excuses. You can give your friends your mobile number in Italian. Let's try together. Il mio numero è 337 122 4968. Can you read it by yourself? 337 122 4968. Now it's time for Consuelo's tips. When we buy groceries in Italy in shops or supermarkets, we usually have to stand in line with a number. When it's your turn to check out, they scream, numero uno, numero 10, and so on. You must be ready. In the next lesson, we are going to learn the numbers from 10 to 100. Your task now is to practice the numbers we studied in this lesson, from 1 to 10. 3, 2, 1, via! 3, 2, 1, go! We'll be waiting for you in our next Italiano in 3 minuti lesson. Ciao! Alla prossima lezione! Ciao a tutti, sono Consuelo. Hi everybody, I'm Consuelo. Welcome back to ItalianPod101.com's Italiano in 3 minuti, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn Italian. In the last lesson, we learned the numbers from 1 to 10. Do you remember them? Here I'll tell you again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now let's continue from 11. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and finally we have 20. Okay, now repeat after me. I'll say the numbers and give you time to repeat each one. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. The numbers from 11 to 20 may seem harder to remember, but please keep in mind that from 11 to 16, the numbers always end in dici, which stands for 10, but from 17, 17, they switch into dicia, and the order is reversed, like 18 and 19. Counting from 10 to 100 is super easy. Now I'll give you the tens. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. We form Italian compound numbers above 20 by simply adding each element in successive order. So, take the tens and simply add the numbers you learned in the previous lesson. Let's try it out by forming some of these numbers. Take the number 56. 50 is 50, and then add 6. 6. 56. It's done! Isn't that easy? Let's make another number. For instance, 99. Take 90, 90, and then add 9. 9. 99. Now, be sure to pay attention. Since the numbers 20, 30, 40, and so on drop the final vowel before uno and otto because they both begin with a vowel. For example, 21, 21, 21, or 38, 38, 38. After only 2 lessons, you are now able to count 100 in Italian. Now it's time for Consuelo's tips. If you want to practice your numbers, why don't you play tombola with your Italian friends? What is tombola? Tombola is the Italian version of bingo. In the Napolitan version, each number has a very amusing drawing that represents a character. For example, the number 22, 22, is o pazzo, the fool. In the next lesson, we are going to learn the phrase quanto costa? Do you know what that phrase means? We'll see these and many other words that may help you while shopping. We'll be waiting for you in our next Italiano in 3 minuti lesson. Ciao, alla prossima lezione! Ciao a tutti, sono Consuelo. Hi everybody, I'm Consuelo and welcome back to ItalianPod101.com's Italiano in 3 minuti, the fastest, easiest and most fun way to learn Italian. In the last lesson, we learned how to count in Italian. I hope you spent enough time practicing the numbers. They will be useful for this lesson because we're going to learn how to ask how much is it? The phrase how much is it is quanto costa? Quanto costa? Are you ready for some unchecked shopping in Italy? Let's practice together. The first thing to say to a shop clerk is scusi. Do you remember what that means? Excuse me. So, scusi, quanto costa? Scusi, quanto costa? If we want to be more specific when asking how much is this, we should add questo when referring to a masculine object or questa when referring to a feminine object. Quanto costa questo? Quanto costa questa? For example, hat is a masculine noun. Cappello. Scusi, quanto costa questo cappello? And what about feminine nouns? Skirt in Italian is feminine. Gonna. So, scusi, quanto costa questa gonna? At this point, the shop clerk can answer by saying costa bla bla bla, sono bla bla bla, fanno bla bla bla. For example, sono 39 euro, fanno 39 euro, or costa 39 euro. What number is 39? I'm not telling you. Okay, it's 39. It costs 39 euros. Now it's time for Consuelo's tips. A quicker way to ask how much is quant'è, which literally means how much is. Even when you ask for an espresso at the counter of an Italian bar, you can ask the cashier, un espresso, per favore. Quant'è? One espresso, please. How much is it? So, don't forget that Italian streets are full of stands, and in most little towns you can easily find local markets with many stands where you can buy absolutely everything. At this point, can you count euros in Italian? We are going to learn how to do this and much more in the next lesson. We'll be waiting for you in our next Italiano in 3 minuti lesson. Ciao, alla prossima lezione!
Hi everybody, Marika here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Italian questions. The question for this lesson is, do Italians only speak Italian, or are there other languages commonly spoken in Italy? Italian is such a famous and beautiful language that many people only know about Standard Italian. However, that's only half the story. Actually, many Italians are native bilinguals. Italian is the most widely spoken language in Italy, but there are lots of regional languages or dialects called dialetti. People don't really use dialects in official or formal settings. That's why Italian is the official language of Italy. It's necessary to have a common language everyone can understand and use together. For the most part, dialects are only spoken and used in casual situations. A few of the major dialects might sound familiar to you. The major ones are Napolitan, Sicilian, Sardinian, Venetian, and Friulan, and there are a lot more. You probably won't be able to find a full list of dialetti online. There are two main reasons why. Dialects don't have a written literature, so few documents have been written about them. In fact, most children learn a dialetto at the same time they learn Standard Italian. The difference is that Italian is what's used in schools, while dialects are used with family and friends. Some people consider dialects as the only language that can truly express one's innermost feelings. Unfortunately, many children today don't learn any dialetti at all. So, if you go to Italy and you overhear an unfamiliar phrase, it might not even be in Italian. It could be a phrase from one of the many Italian dialects. Isn't that interesting? If you have any more questions, leave them in the comments below. A presto! See you soon! Hi everybody, Marika here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Italian questions. The question for this lesson is, what are some examples of Italian loanwords we use in everyday English? You may not know it, but you probably use some Italian every day. Did you know that bravo, dilemma, and paparazzi are Italian words? English is full of Italian loanwords. We use them in almost every aspect of our lives, especially in art, music, cuisine, and architecture. The most obvious is probably cuisine. I'm sure you've seen silly people try to imitate Italian by saying spaghetti, cappuccino, espresso, mozzarella, macaroni. Well, they're actually Italian words. You might have seen al dente or pasta fresca, which means fresh pasta, on English pasta packages. Those are two different ways to prepare pasta. Did you know that the words zucchini and broccoli are also from Italian? Music and art also have plenty of Italian loanwords. Take finale, scenario, solo, and concerto. Those are all commonly used in English. There are lots more on a technical level too, like forte, fortissimo, piano, pianissimo, motto, stanza. In arts and architecture, studio, villa, graffiti, veranda, and ghetto, as well as apartment, from appartamento, are all Italian loanwords. The list doesn't end here. Umbrella comes from the Italian ombrello, lottery comes from lotteria, and tombola is also an Italian game. Madonna, Monsignor, and Padre are all loanwords related to religion. Scherzo in Italian means joke, and novel comes from the Italian novella. Sonnet comes from sonetto. Italian is everywhere. Be careful with some loanwords though. The Italian word doesn't always mean the same thing in English. For example, manifesto in Italian means poster. English loanwords don't always follow Italian grammar either. Zucchini and macaroni are spelled differently in Italian. English words like panini and salami are mistakenly used in the plural form. Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments and I'll try to answer them. A presto, see you soon! Hi everybody, Marika here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Italian questions. The question for this lesson is, does Italian have any false friends words that look the same in English but mean something different? The answer is yes. The term false friends is the perfect name for these words. They are like people who look really familiar but are actually total strangers. We'll go through some of the most common ones, so you can avoid miscommunications when you're speaking Italian. If your Italian partner is going to introduce you to his or her parenti, you'll be meeting their relatives, not just the parents. The word parents is genitori in Italian. Also, if you see the word sale in a supermarket, don't think you're getting a discount. Sale is actually the Italian word for salt. If someone describes you as educato or educata, they are usually not talking about your education. They are saying that you are polite. And if you work in a factory, don't say you work in a fattoria. That means you work on a farm. If you are a librarian, don't work in a libreria, because that's bookshop. So don't think that you can borrow books there for free. Make sure you don't offer to take pictures with your camera. That means room. You take pictures on your macchina fotografica. Pay attention to verbs too. Attualmente means currently in Italian. The Italian for actually is in realtà. Definitely doesn't translate as definitivamente either. That means ultimately. Lastly, when you're talking about an event that's coming up later than expected, don't use eventualmente for eventually. Eventualmente means possibly, and, of course, there are many more. Got it? Keep the questions coming. If you have another question, leave it in the comments and I'll try to answer it. A presto! See you soon! Hi everybody, Marika here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Italian questions. The question for this lesson is, what are masculine and feminine nouns and how are they different? In Italian, all nouns have a gender. A noun can either be masculine or feminine. That applies to plural nouns too, and to all the words that can modify nouns, such as articles and adjectives. Other Romance languages have similar system of masculine and feminine nouns. It's a trait that comes from Latin. The gender depends on the origin of the Latin word. English doesn't have masculine and feminine nouns though. So the easiest way for English speakers to tell a noun's gender is by looking at the last letter of the noun. If a noun ends with O in the singular and E in the plural, it's usually masculine. If a noun ends with A in the singular and E in the plural, it's usually feminine. For example, sedia, meaning chair, ends with an A, so it's feminine. La sedia. In the plural, le sedie. Libro, meaning book, ends with an O, so it's masculine. Il libro. And in the plural, I libri, ending with an I. The OI for masculine and AE for feminine rule doesn't always work though. Most of the time, but not always. There are some exceptions like la moto, meaning the bike, which is feminine, and il problema, meaning the problem, which is actually masculine. To make things even more complicated, there is a third class of nouns ending with E in the singular and I in the plural. These can be masculine or feminine depending on the word. That's why it's important to learn nouns and their respective genders together with the right definite articles. The definite articles are different from each gender, so they'll help you remember. For example, take bicchiere, meaning glass, which is in that third category of nouns ending in E. The right article for bicchiere is il, so il bicchiere is masculine. How about nave, meaning ship? The right article for this one is la, so la nave is feminine. Again, there is unfortunately no formula to find the right gender. The Latin origins of words go way back, and often people don't know why some words have a certain gender today. Your best guide is going to be our first rule, singular O and plural I for masculine, and singular A, plural E for feminine. Just try to memorize the articles with the nouns, and before you know it, the gender classifications will come naturally to you. Woo! That's it for this lesson. Please send in any more questions you have, and I'll try to answer them. A presto, see you soon! Hi everybody, Marika here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Italian questions. The question for this lesson is, how do you form the plural of nouns? In Italian, just like in English, nouns can be singular or plural depending on what they refer to. To form the plural of Italian nouns, you generally have to change the final letter of the singular form from one vowel to another. Masculine nouns ending in O and A form the plural by changing the final vowel to I. For example, ragazzo, meaning boy, becomes ragazzi in the plural, and the plural of poeta, which means poet, is poeti. Feminine nouns ending in A form the plural by changing the A to E. So, mela, meaning apple, changes to mele when it means apples. Finally, there are also nouns ending in E. Both masculine and feminine nouns that end in E form the plural by changing the final vowel to I. Let's take cane, for example, which means dog, and is masculine. The plural form is cani. Similarly, the plural of chiave, a feminine noun meaning key, is chiavi. However, not all nouns follow these rules. In fact, there are lots of exceptions. Let's see a few of them. Some nouns don't change in the plural. You can still tell if a noun is plural because the definite article or its adjective will be in the plural form, but the noun itself doesn't change. Among the words that remain unchanged in plural, there are all nouns ending in accent vowels like caffè, meaning coffee, or città, meaning city. Foreign nouns ending in a consonant, for example, computer, film, or sport. Singular nouns that end in I, crisi, meaning crisis, or brindisi, meaning toast. Monosyllable nouns, for example, re, which means king. Some nouns have an irregular plural form. For example, man in Italian is uomo, while men is uomini. And there are even Italian nouns that change gender when they become plural. For example, finger is masculine in the singular form, il dito, but becomes feminine in the plural, le dita. Plurals sometimes can be a challenge even for native Italian speakers. However, exceptions are exceptions. You shouldn't obsess over them. Just memorize the few rules I told you in the beginning and go from there. Pretty interesting, right? If you have any more questions, please leave a comment below. A presto! See you soon! Hi everybody, Marika here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I will answer some of your most common Italian questions. The question for this lesson is, essere o avere? How can I choose the right auxiliary verb in compound verbs? In Italian, when forming compound tenses, such as the present perfect or passato prossimo, you'll need an auxiliary verb. This will either be essere, to be, or avere, to have. In English, you don't have to make this choice, as you only need to have. That's why deciding which auxiliary to use in Italian can be a bit difficult at first. Let's have a look at some rules that will help you choose the right auxiliary. The first thing you need to remember is that transitive verbs always need avere. Let's see some examples. Io ho mangiato una mela. I have eaten an apple. Mangiare, to eat, is a transitive verb, meaning that it can have a direct object. Giorgio ha guardato un film. Giorgio has watched a movie. Guardare, to watch, is also transitive. Abbiamo conosciuto Laura. We have met Laura. Conoscere, to meet, is also transitive. Reflexive verbs, on the other hand, always use essere. Let's see an example. Mi sono innamorato. I have fallen in love. Innamorarsi, to fall in love, is reflexive. Verbs in the passive form also use essere. La mela è stata mangiata. The apple has been eaten. È stata mangiata, meaning has been eaten, is a passive form of mangiare, to eat. What about intransitive verbs? Some use essere and others avere. Although there are no set rules, here are some things you can look out for. For example, intransitive verbs of movement always use essere, such as andare, to go, and arrivare, to arrive. Here are two sample sentences. Ieri sono andata a Venezia. Yesterday I went to Venice. Siete arrivati tardi. You have arrived late. On the other hand, intransitive verbs of movement, where the destination doesn't need to be mentioned, always use avere. Some examples are camminare, to walk, or viaggiare, to travel. A few sample sentences. Abbiamo camminato tanto. We have walked a lot. Ho viaggiato in treno. I've traveled by train. One last thing. There are some cases where both essere and avere are acceptable. This mainly happens with verbs about the weather. Piovere, to rain, nevicare, to snow, grandinare, to hail, tuonare, to thunder. So you can say è piovuto, but also ha piovuto. Both means it has rained. Pretty interesting, right? If you have any more questions, please leave a comment below. A presto, see you soon! Hi everybody, Marika here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Italian questions. The question for this lesson is, what's the difference between potere and riuscire? Riuscire and potere are two verbs we use very often in Italian. Sometimes their meanings overlap, but other times they mean completely different things. Potere is translated as to be able to or can. It indicates the capacity and or possibility to do a determinate action. For example, non devi cucinare, posso farlo io. You don't have to cook, I can do it. Potere is an irregular verb, but more importantly, it's a modal verb. Modal verbs are used to give additional information about the main verb. As with other modal verbs, potere is almost always followed by an infinitive verb without a linking preposition. For example, posso andare alla festa? Can I go to the party? Sometimes we can use another verb, riuscire. In English, this can be translated in the same way as potere. However, riuscire has a slightly different meaning. Its meaning is somewhere between the English verbs to be able to and to succeed. Let's see some examples. Non riesco a dormire, c'è troppo rumore. I can't sleep, there's too much noise. Sono riuscito ad arrivare in tempo. I managed to arrive on time. Please also note that riuscire needs the preposition a in front of the infinitive. It's not always easy to grasp the difference between these two verbs. Look at these sentences. Ho 15 anni. Non posso guidare. I'm 15. I can't drive. It's the same as saying, I'm not allowed to drive. Sono troppo stanca. Non riesco a guidare. I'm too tired. I can't drive. It's the same as saying, even if I tried, I couldn't. Here is another example that may help. We can translate I can't sleep at the office in two different ways in Italian. One is non posso dormire in ufficio. The other one, non riesco a dormire in ufficio. The first one is the most likely, as it means that I can't sleep because of the office rules. The second one, instead, means something like I can't manage sleeping at the office. The speaker can't sleep not because of the rules, but because of the noise or another secondary reason. Sometimes it doesn't matter which verb you choose. For example, you could say non posso venire alla festa or non riesco a venire alla festa. Though their nuance is different, the meaning is the same. I can't go to the party. To recap, keep in mind that there are some situations where you can't use riuscire to express the same meaning. Situations like when you ask for permission, posso uscire? Can I go out? When you ask for someone's help, qualcuno può aiutarmi? Can anyone help me? When you make a suggestion, potresti provare? Could you try? Pretty interesting, right? If you have any more questions, please leave a comment below. A presto, see you soon! Hi everybody, Marika here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Italian questions. The question for this lesson is, how do reflexive verbs work? Reflexive verbs are one of those elements that don't really have an English counterpart. A verb in Italian is reflexive when the subject carries out the action on itself. Please note that not all verbs can be reflexive. The infinitive form of a reflexive verb is made by dropping the infinitive ending e from are, ere, and ire, and adding the pronoun si. For example, svegliare, svegliarsi, to wake up. Reflexive verbs, when conjugated, are preceded by a reflexive pronoun that complies with the subject. Let's see an example. Vestire, to dress. PS, vestirsi, reflexive form, to get dressed. Maria veste il manichino. VS, Maria si veste. In the first example, the object of the verb vestire is the mannequin, while in the second sentence, the object is Maria herself. Subject and object coincide. The reflexive pronoun si is conjugated as follows. Io mi vesto, I get dressed. Tu ti vesti, you get dressed. Lei si veste, she gets dressed. Noi ci vestiamo, we get dressed. Voi vi vestite, you get dressed. Loro si vestono, they get dressed. In compound tenses, reflexive verbs have essere to be as auxiliary verb, so we always form the passato prossimo of the reflexive verbs with essere. Let's see some examples. Maria si è vestita. Maria has got dressed. Ci siamo svegliati. We have woken up. We can also use reflexive verbs as reciprocal verbs. The subject is always plural. The reciprocity of the action that the verb expresses often translates in English as each other. For example, noi ci amiamo. We love each other. Loro si salutano. They say hello to each other. It's easier than you thought, right? If you have any more questions, please leave a comment below. A presto! See you soon! Hi everybody, Marika here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Italian questions. The question for this lesson is, how can I use the pronoun ne? Ne is an Italian pronoun that takes the place of nouns so that we don't have to repeat the same words. These nouns can refer to people, places, or things. Let's take a look at how it can be used. First, ne can be used when replacing a noun introduced by di or any combination like del, della, and so on. In this case, it has a partitive meaning. It can be translated as any, some, of it, of them. For example, hai bisogno di soldi? Sì, ne ho bisogno. Do you need some money? Yes, I need some. Abbiamo del burro? No, non ne abbiamo. Do we have any butter? No, we don't have any of it. Ne can also replace nouns introduced by a number or an expression of quantity. Let's see some examples. Quante borse hai? Ne ho solo 3. How many purses do you have? I have only 3. Vuoi dello zucchero nel caffè? Sì, ne vorrei 2 cucchiaini. Would you like some sugar in your coffee? Yes, I'd like 2 spoons. We also use ne to replace nouns phrases introduced by the preposition di with specific verbs. Here are some examples. Parlare di, meaning to talk about. Let's see a sample sentence. You can say, domani parleremo del problema, meaning tomorrow we'll talk about the problem. If it's clear what you are going to talk about, you can use ne and say, domani ne parleremo. This means, we'll talk about it tomorrow. In this case, ne replaces the phrase, del problema. Another similar case is accorgersi di, meaning to notice. You can either say, non mi sono accorto di questo errore. I didn't notice this mistake. Or, if it's clear what you're talking about, you can say, non me ne sono accorto. I didn't notice it. Now, let's see where to put this little word in a sentence. Usually, we position ne before the conjugated verb. For example, ne vuoi ancora? Would you like more? In negative statements, it's always between the negation non and the verb. Vuoi un altro bicchiere di spumante? No, non ne voglio. Do you want another glass of sparkling wine? No, I don't want. In addition, we can attach it to an infinitive or a gerund. Non voglio più berne, grazie. I don't want to drink any more, thank you. Here we've put together the infinitive bere and ne, making berne. Here is an example with a gerund. Avendone bevuto troppo, ora non si sente bene. Having drunk too much, now he doesn't feel well. There are several rules, so at first try memorizing and actually using a few expressions with ne. You'll eventually get the hang of it. Start with these three. Che ne pensi? What do you think about it? Non ce n'è più. There is no more of it. Ne vuoi? Do you want some? They're pretty simple, right? If you have any more questions, please leave us a comment below. A presto! See you soon! Hi everybody, Marika here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Italian questions. The question for this lesson is, what is gerundio? Gerundio, or in English, gerund, is a verb non-finite mood. This means that you don't need to conjugate it. It's very similar to the continuous form of English verbs ending in ing. As we said, it's very convenient as you don't need to conjugate it. It only has two endings, ando for verbs ending in are and endo for verbs ending in ere and ire. Another reason why it's easy is that it only has two tenses, present and past. Here are some verbs in the present gerund. Parlando, talking, from parlare to talk. Cadendo, falling, from cadere to fall. Dormendo, sleeping, from dormire to sleep. To form the past gerund, use the right auxiliary essere, to be, or avere, to have, in the present gerund, plus the past participle of the main verb. Here is the past gerund of the same verbs. Avendo parlato, having talked. Essendo caduto, having fallen. Avendo dormito, having slept. You can use the gerund alone for two actions happening at the same time. Studio ascoltando la musica. I study listening to music. To say why something happens. Essendo stanca, andrò a letto. Being tired, she went to bed. To express a possibility, a hypothesis. Volendo, potremmo andare al cinema. If you wanted to, we could go to the movies. Another way you can use the gerund is combined with the verb stare, to stay, to be. If you combine the present tense of stare and the gerund, you get the present continuous. For example, sto studiando italiano. I am studying Italian. Tu stai leggendo. You are reading. If you combine the imperfect tense of stare and the gerund, you get the past continuous. Stavo studiando italiano. I was studying Italian. Tu stavi leggendo. You were reading. Pretty easy, right? If you have any more questions, please leave us a comment. A presto, see you soon! Hi everybody, Marika here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Italian questions. The question for this lesson is, when should I use the subjunctive or congiuntivo? The subjunctive is a verb mood used to express doubt, hope, fear, or possibility. In other words, the subjunctive expresses subjectivity. Basically, you need it to express anything that isn't a sure fact. So, where should you use the subjunctive? In subordinate clauses introduced by a verb expressing doubt, a supposition or a guess. Look at the difference between these two sentences. So che sei stato tu, indicative, versus penso che sia stato tu, subjunctive. I know it was you, versus I think it was you. I know holds the same meaning as I'm sure, I know for a fact. Therefore, you don't need a subjunctive. In the second sentence, penso, I think, means I believe, but I'm not 100% sure. Therefore, it requires the subjunctive. Let's go ahead. You also need the subjunctive in subordinate clauses introduced by a thinking verb. This may express desire, hope, will, but never effect. Here is an example. Spero che tu possa venire alla festa. I hope you can come to the party. Another case is when you're talking about other people's feelings and thoughts. Again, these are things that you can never be sure 100%. For example, sono contenta che ti piaccia il mio libro. I'm happy that you like my book. You need to use the subjunctive after certain conjugations. Sebbene, although, benché, although, affinché, so that, dovunque, wherever, nonostante, despite, prima che, before. For example, sebbene fosse tardi, la chiamai. Although it was late, I called her. Diglielo, prima che sia troppo tardi. Tell him, before it's too late. You should use the subjunctive after impersonal expressions such as bisogna che, it's necessary that. È necessario che, it's necessary that. È possibile che, it's possible that. È probabile che, it's probable that. For example, è probabile che piova domani. It's probable that it will rain tomorrow. To form the polite imperative. Italian imperative doesn't have all the persons, so the third person borrows its form from the present subjunctive. Prego, si sieda. Please, have a seat. Finally, you need a subjunctive in the if clauses of the second and third conditional. You'll study this later. For now, here is an example. Se lo sapessi, te lo direi. If I knew, I'd tell you. Colloquial Italian often replaces the subjunctive with the indicative. It's not unusual to hear prima che te ne vai, before you leave, instead of prima che tu te ne vada. Or you might hear sono contenta che ti piace, I'm happy you like it, instead of sono contenta che ti piaccia. This is actually a very controversial topic. Some people don't accept these examples as correct Italian, but language is a living thing, so who knows how it'll change in the future. Pretty interesting, right? If you have any more questions, please leave us a comment. A presto, see you soon! Hi everybody, Marika here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Italian questions. The question for this lesson is, why don't I always need to conjugate the verb in a subordinate clause? Sometimes Italian seems simpler than English because it can have an infinitive verb, whereas English has a conjugated form. For example, lui sa di avere ragione. He knows he is right. Why is avere not conjugated? What are the rules that regulate this? The sentence in the example above can be divided into two clauses. Lui sa di, meaning he knows that, is the main clause. Avere ragione, literally to be right, is the subordinate clause. In English, it's translated as he is right. This is a special kind of subordinate clause called implicit. Implicit subordinate clauses feature a non-finite mood verb, which means not conjugable verb. Infinitive is the most used in Italian. If the subject of the main clause and the subordinate is the same, the infinitive can replace clauses beginning with che. Sounds complicated. Look at these examples. Non sono sicura che partirò. I'm not sure I will leave. You can say, non sono sicura di partire. Mario sa che è bravo in matematica. Mario knows he's good at math. You can say, Mario sa di essere bravo in matematica. When the subject in the two sentences is the same, and the first verb is a thinking verb, your only option is to use the infinitive in the second sentence. So if you want to say, I hope I will leave, you have to say, spero di partire, not spero che io parta. The second one is too wordy and sounds unnatural. However, if the subjects are different, you must use the subjunctive. Spero che Laura parta. I hope Laura will leave. Pretty simple, right? If you have any more questions, please leave us a comment. A presto, see you soon! Hi everybody, Marika here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Italian questions. The question for this lesson is, what are modified nouns? In Italian, you can modify nouns. That allows you to convey feelings such as love, hate, or irony in a concise and effective way. Modified nouns, called nomi alterati, can take different endings that convey different feelings. They are usually divided into categories. Let's see which ones. To describe something positively or negatively, you can use pezzeggiativi and dispregiativi. Pezzeggiativi express endearment. Some common suffixes are uccio and ino. For example, tesoruccio, sweetheart, gattino, kitten. Dispregiativi express dislike. Common suffixes are accio and astro. For example, scarpaccia, ugly shoe, giovinastro, loud. To describe the aspect of something, you can use accrescitivi and diminutivi. Accrescitivi indicate a big size. The most common suffix is one. For example, ragazzone, big boy, nasone, big nose. Diminutivi indicate smallness. Common suffixes are ino, etto, otto, ello. For example, topino, little mouse, bacetto, small kiss, leprotto, small hair, alberello, little tree. Be aware of fake modified nouns, or falsi alterati. These are words that look like modified nouns but mean a totally different thing. Matto means crazy person, but mattone is not a big crazy man, it's a brick. And mulino means mill, not a small mule, that's mulo. Italian children often learn funny nursery rhymes in school about these false modified nouns. Here is one I just invented. Ready? Take note. La gomma per cancellare, il gommone per andare al mare. Col burro puoi cucinare, ma del burrone non scivolare. Se vedi un lampo, c'è il temporale. Se vedi un lampone, lo puoi mangiare. Which means the eraser to erase, the raft to go out to the sea. With butter you can cook, but don't sleep on the ravine. If you see lightning, that's a storm. If you see a raspberry, you can eat it. Pretty fun, right? Do you know any other false modifying noun? Let us know in the comments. A presto! See you soon! Hi everybody, Marika here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Italian questions. The question for this lesson is, what are the top 10 most common Italian idioms? It might not be necessary to know idioms in order to communicate in Italian, but they are very effective and fun. Also, if you can use some idioms, you'll sound more fluent. Are you ready to find out 10 of the most common Italian idioms? Let's start. In bocca al lupo. This literally means into the mouth of the wolf. The origin of this expression isn't clear, but Italians use it very, very often to wish someone good luck. If someone says in bocca al lupo to you, you should reply crepi il lupo. May the wolf croak. costare un occhio dalla testa, literally, to cost an eye of the head. This has basically the same meaning as the English idiom, to cost an arm and a leg. It means that something costs so much that you'd have to sell a part of your body to be able to afford it. Essere al verde. The literal translation is to be at the green, but it actually means to be broke. This expression is said to have originated in Florence, where the bottom half of auctioneer candles were painted green. When the candle reached the green, the flow of money would come to a stop. Another theory is that the color refers to the inside of a wallet, which you could see once you were out of money. Tra il dire e il fare c'è di mezzo il mare. Idiomatic expressions about the sea are quite common in Italian. This one means, between saying and doing there is a sea in the middle. It means, easier said than done. Italians often shorten this expression and just say, tra il dire e il fare. Una volta ogni morte di papa. Once every time a pope dies. The English equivalent of this expression is once in a blue moon. Both are used about something happening very rarely. Essere al settimo cielo. This idiom has the perfect analog in English, to be in seventh heaven, meaning to be extremely happy. This expression comes from the philosophy on which Dante's comedy is based. According to this philosophy, the earth is in the center of the universe, surrounded by 7 concentric heavens. Seventh heaven was the highest degree of elevation for man. Dormire come un sasso, to sleep like a stone. This idiom is basically the same as English, to sleep like a log. It means that someone is sleeping so soundly that they look like an inanimate object. You can also say dormire come un ghiro, to sleep like a dormouse. Acqua in bocca. The literal translation is water in your mouth. If someone says acqua in bocca to you, they want you to keep it a secret, because of course, you can't say anything if your mouth is full of water. Il gioco non vale la candela. The game isn't worth the candle. This expression is of medieval origin. Back then, people used candles at night, and candles could be expensive. Card players used to repay the owner of the house that hosted them with either money or a candle. The saying started to spread among players to indicate games where the winnings were so low that they wouldn't even cover the small expense left for the candle. Tagliare la corda, to cut the rope. This expression means to run away from a situation. It originates from the rope that was used to keep boats tied to the shore. To sail, it was necessary to free the boat first, but if someone was in great hurry, the rope would be cut. Pretty interesting, right? That's all for this lesson and this series. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in another series. A presto! See you soon!
Welcome to Can Do Italian by ItalianPod101.com.
Ciao a tutti, sono Felice Angelini. Hi everyone, I am Felice Angelini. In this lesson, you'll learn how to introduce yourself in Italian.
This is Margalie, and he's on a plane to Italy. Paolo Parisi, a passenger sitting next to him, introduces himself by saying, "Hello, I'm Paolo Parisi. Nice to meet you."
Buongiorno, sono Paolo Parisi, piacere.
Listen to the conversation and focus on Mark's response. Ready?
Buongiorno, sono Paolo Parisi, piacere.
Piacere, sono Mark Lee.
Once more, with the English translation.
Buongiorno, sono Paolo Parisi, piacere.
Hello, I'm Paolo Parisi. Nice to meet you.
Piacere, sono Mark Lee.
Nice to meet you. I'm Mark Lee.
Let's take a closer look at Mark's response.
Do you remember how Mark Lee introduces himself? Nice to meet you. I'm Mark Lee.
Piacere, sono Mark Lee.
First is the expression,
Piacere.
meaning a pleasure.
Piacere. Piacere. Piacere.
Is actually a shortened version of,
Piacere di conoscerla.
meaning it's a pleasure to meet you.
Piacere di conoscerla.
Both Mark and Paolo use the short form
Piacere.
in their introductions. This shortened version can be used in many contexts and is appropriate for both formal and informal situations. Do you remember how Mark says, I'm Mark Lee?
Sono Mark Lee.
First is,
Sono.
I am.
Sono. Sono.
Note,
Sono.
is a shortened form of,
Io sono.
in Italian,
Io.
I is usually omitted as it can be understood from context.
Sono.
Is from the verb,
Essere.
meaning to be.
Essere.
Next is the name,
Mark Lee.
Mark Lee.
Mark Lee. Mark Lee.
Together, it's,
Sono Mark Lee.
I'm Mark Lee.
Sono Mark Lee.
The pattern is,
Sono. Name.
I'm name.
Sono. Name.
To use this pattern, simply replace the name placeholder with your name. Imagine you're Karen Lee. In Italian,
Karen Lee. Karen Lee. Karen Lee.
say, I'm Karen Lee. Ready?
Sono Karen Lee.
I'm Karen Lee.
Sono Karen Lee.
Let's look at some more examples. Listen and repeat, or speak along with the native speakers.
Piacere, sono Paolo Parisi. Piacere, sono Paolo Parisi.
Piacere, sono Mark Lee. Piacere, sono Mark Lee.
Piacere, sono Karen Lee. Piacere, sono Karen Lee.
Piacere, sono Felice Angelini. Piacere, sono Felice Angelini.
Piacere, mi chiamo Rosa Romano. Piacere, mi chiamo Rosa Romano.
Did you notice how the last speaker uses a different pattern?
She says,
Mi chiamo Rosa Romano.
My name is Rosa Romano.
Mi chiamo Rosa Romano.
This pattern uses the phrase,
Mi chiamo.
which literally means, I myself call, but translates as, my name is.
Mi chiamo. Mi chiamo.
First is,
Mi.
meaning me.
Mi. Mi.
After this is,
Chiamo.
meaning I call.
Chiamo. Chiamo.
Note,
Chiamo.
is the shortened form of,
Io chiamo.
In Italian,
Io.
I is usually omitted.
Chiamo.
Is from the verb
Chiamare.
to call.
Chiamare.
Next is the name,
Rosa Romano.
Rosa Romano.
Rosa Romano. Rosa Romano.
Altogether,
Mi chiamo Rosa Romano.
literally, myself I call Rosa Romano, but it translates as my name is Rosa Romano.
Mi chiamo Rosa Romano.
The pattern is
Mi chiamo. Name.
my name is name.
Mi chiamo. Name.
You should be aware of this pattern, but for this lesson, we'll use the pattern
Sono. Name.
I'm name.
Sono. Name.
Let's review the key vocabulary.
Buongiorno.
Hello,
Buongiorno. Buongiorno. Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say, "Nice to meet you"? Piacere. Piacere. And the Italian pronunciation of Mark Lee's name? Mark Lee. Mark Lee. Do you remember how Mark Lee says, "I'm Mark Lee"? Sono Mark Lee. Sono Mark Lee. And do you remember how Mark Lee says, "Nice to meet you, I'm Mark Lee"?
Piacere. Sono Mark Lee.
Piacere, sono Mark Lee. Do you remember how Paolo Parisi says, "Hello"? Buongiorno. Buongiorno. Do you remember how Paolo Parisi says, "Hello, I'm Paolo Parisi. Nice to meet you"?
Buongiorno, sono Paolo Parisi, piacere.
Buongiorno, sono Paolo Parisi. Piacere.
let's practice. Imagine you're Karen Lee.
Karen Lee.
Respond to Paolo Parisi's self-introduction. Ready?
Buongiorno, sono Paolo Parisi, piacere.
Piacere, sono Karen Lee.
Listen again and repeat.
Piacere, sono Karen Lee. Piacere, sono Karen Lee.
Let's try another. Imagine you're Rosa Romano.
Rosa Romano.
Ready?
Buongiorno, sono Paolo Parisi, piacere.
Piacere. Sono Rosa Romano.
Listen again and repeat.
Piacere. Sono Rosa Romano. Piacere. Sono Rosa Romano.
Let's try one more. Imagine you're Felice Angelini.
Felice Angelini.
Ready?
Buongiorno, sono Paolo Parisi, piacere.
Piacere, sono Felice Angelini.
Listen again and repeat.
Piacere, sono Felice Angelini. Piacere, sono Felice Angelini.
In casual situations, you can also use this pattern with just your first name. For example, in the case of Karen Lee, you can simply say, Sono Karen. I'm Karen. Sono Karen. This is the end of this lesson.
Remember, these can-do lessons are about learning practical language skills. What's next? Show us what you can do. When you're ready, take your assessment. You can take it again and again, so try anytime you like. Our teachers will assess it and give you your results.
Well done! Now you know how to introduce yourself in Italian. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson. This is the end of this lesson.
Now, here's what you can do to cement this conversation in your head. Review the conversation with our dialogue tool and lesson transcripts. Study the key words and phrases with our spaced repetition flashcards. Review the key grammar and cultural tips inside the lesson notes. And test yourself with our assessment tests. So click the link in the description right now and sign up for your free lifetime account to access our Can-Do course.
Well done! Now you know how to introduce yourself in Italian. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson.
Welcome to Can Do Italian by ItalianPod101.com.
Ciao a tutti, sono Felice Angelini. Hi everyone, I'm Felice Angelini. In this lesson, you learn how to tell someone where are you from in Italian.
This is Mark Lee, and he's on a plane to Italy. Paolo Parisi, a passenger sitting next to him, asks, "Where are you from?"
Di dov'è?
Listen to the conversation and focus on Mark's response. Note, the speakers in this conversation use formal Italian. Ready?
Di dov'è?
Sono di New York.
Once more with the English translation.
Di dov'è?
Where are you from?
Sono di New York.
I am from New York.
Let's take a closer look at the conversation.
Do you remember how Paolo Parisi asks, "Where are you from?"
Di dov'è?
First is
Di.
meaning from in this context.
Di. Di.
Next is
Dov'è?
a formal phrase which translates as, "Where are you?"
Dov'è?
First is
Dove?
where.
Dove? Dove?
Next is
È.
you are when using formal Italian.
È. È.
Note,
È.
is a shortened form of
Lei è.
you are. In Italian,
Lei.
you, when using formal Italian, can be omitted when it is understood from context.
È.
Is from the verb
Essere.
meaning to be,
essere, dove,
is contracted with
è,
to form.
dov'è,
Altogether,
di dov'è,
where are you from?
di dov'è,
Remember this question. You'll hear it again later in this lesson.
Now, let's take a closer look at the response.
Do you remember how Mark Lee says, I am from New York?
Sono di New York.
First is,
sono,
I am.
sono, sono,
Note, in this sentence,
sono,
is a shortened form of
io sono,
I am. In Italian,
io,
I is usually omitted as it's understood from context.
sono,
Is from the verb,
essere,
meaning to be.
essere,
Next is
di,
from in this context.
di,
Last is the city,
New York,
New York.
New York, New York,
Altogether,
Sono di New York.
I am from New York.
Sono di New York.
The pattern is
sono di, city name,
I am from city name.
sono di, city name,
Note, this pattern works only with the names of cities, villages, or towns. To use this pattern, simply replace the city name placeholder with the name of your hometown city. Imagine you're from Sydney. In Italian,
Sydney, Sydney, Sydney,
say, I am from Sydney. Ready?
sono di Sydney,
I am from Sydney.
sono di Sydney,
Let's look at some examples. Listen and repeat, or speak along with the native speakers.
Sono di New York. Sono di New York.
Sono di Bologna. Sono di Bologna.
Sono di Seattle. Sono di Seattle.
Sono di Londra. Sono di Londra.
Sono di Roma. Sono di Roma.
Sono australiana. Sono australiana.
Did you notice how the last speaker uses a different pattern?
Sono australiana.
I am Australian.
Sono australiana.
Instead of
di,
plus the city name placeholder, she uses an adjective for her nationality. This pattern is
sono, nationality,
I am nationality.
sono, nationality,
In Mia Martin's case, she uses a feminine adjective
australiana,
to describe herself.
Sono australiana.
In the case of a male speaker from Australia, he would use a masculine adjective
australiano,
to describe himself.
sono australiano,
I'm Australian.
sono australiano,
You can use this response to answer the question,
di dov'è?
You should be aware of this pattern, but for this lesson, we'll use the pattern
Sono di city name.
I am from city name.
Sono di city name.
Let's review the key vocabulary.
Bologna.
Bologna,
Bologna. Bologna. Seattle.
Seattle,
Seattle. Seattle. Londra.
London,
Londra. Londra. Roma.
Rome,
Roma. Roma.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say New York? New York. New York. And how to say from? Di. Di. Do you remember how Mark says, I am from New York? Sono di New York. Sono di New York. Do you remember the formal way to say, where are you? Dov'è? Dov'è? And do you remember how Paolo Parisi asks, where are you from? Di dov'è? Di dov'è? Do you remember how to say London? Londra. Londra. And how to say Seattle? Seattle. Seattle. Do you remember how to say Rome? Roma. Roma.
Let's practice. Imagine you're Jack Jones from London. Respond to Paolo Parisi's question. Ready?
Di dov'è? Sono di Londra.
Listen again and repeat.
Sono di Londra. Sono di Londra.
Let's try another. Imagine you're Emma Esposito from Seattle. Ready?
Di dov'è?
Sono di Seattle.
Listen again and repeat.
Sono di Seattle. Sono di Seattle.
Let's try one more. Imagine you're Felice Angelini from Rome. Ready?
Di dov'è?
Sono di Roma.
Listen again and repeat.
Sono di Roma. Sono di Roma.
This is the end of this lesson.
Remember, these can-do lessons are about learning practical language skills. What's next? Show us what you can do. When you're ready, take your assessment. You can take it again and again, so try anytime you like. Our teachers will assess it and give you your results.
Well done! Now you know how to talk about where you're from in Italian. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson. This is the end of this lesson.
Now, here's what you can do to cement this conversation in your head. Review the conversation with our dialogue tool and lesson transcripts. Study the key words and phrases with our spaced repetition flashcards. Review the key grammar and cultural tips inside the lesson notes. And test yourself with our assessment tests. So click the link in the description right now and sign up for your free lifetime account to access our Can-Do course.
Well done! Now you know how to talk about where you're from in Italian. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson.
Welcome to Can Do Italian by ItalianPod101.com.
Ciao a tutti, sono Felice Angelini. Hi everyone, I'm Felice Angelini. In this lesson, you learn how to talk about your occupation in Italian.
This is Mark Lee, and he's on a plane to Italy. He asks the passenger sitting next to him, Paolo Parisi, "Are you a student?"
È studente?
Listen to the conversation and focus on Paolo's response. Note, the speakers in this conversation use formal Italian. Ready?
È studente?
No, non sono studente. Sono investitore.
Once more with the English translation.
È studente?
Are you a student?
No, non sono studente. Sono investitore.
No, I'm not a student. I'm an investor.
Let's take a closer look at the conversation.
Do you remember how Mark asks, "Are you a student?"
È studente?
First is
È.
you are when using formal Italian.
È. È.
Note,
È.
is a shortened form of
Lei è.
you are. In Italian,
Lei.
you, when using formal Italian, can be omitted when it is understood from context.
È.
Is from the verb,
Essere.
meaning to be.
Essere.
Next is
Studente.
student.
Studente. Studente.
In Italian, all nouns have grammatical gender and are either singular or plural.
Studente.
Is masculine singular. Altogether,
È studente?
are you a student?
È studente?
Now, let's take a closer look at the response.
Do you remember how Paolo says, "No, I'm not a student. I'm an investor"?
No, non sono studente. Sono investitore.
First is the expression,
No.
meaning no.
No. No.
It answers Mark's yes or no question, "Are you a student?"
È studente?
After this, Paolo specifies that he's not a student.
Non sono studente.
I'm not a student.
Non sono studente.
First is
Non.
not.
Non. Non.
Next is
Sono.
I am.
Sono. Sono.
Note here
Sono.
is a shortened form of
Io sono.
I am. In Italian,
Io.
I is usually omitted as it's understood from context.
Sono.
Is from the verb
Essere.
meaning to be.
Essere.
Together, it's
Non sono.
literally not I am, but it translates as I'm not.
Non sono.
Next is
Studente.
student.
Studente.
Altogether,
Non sono studente.
I'm not a student.
Non sono studente.
Paolo then tells Mark his actual occupation.
Sono investitore.
I'm an investor.
Sono investitore.
First,
Sono.
I am.
Sono.
Next is
Investitore.
investor.
Investitore. Investitore.
The word
Investitore.
is masculine singular. Together,
Sono investitore.
I'm an investor.
Sono investitore.
Altogether,
No, non sono studente. Sono investitore.
no, I'm not a student. I'm an investor.
No, non sono studente. Sono investitore.
The pattern is
No, non sono.
occupation,
Sono.
actual occupation. No, I'm not occupation. I'm actual occupation.
No, non sono.
Occupation,
Sono.
actual occupation. Imagine you're Emma Esposito, a student. The word for a female student is
Studentessa. Studentessa. Studentessa.
Paolo Parisi asks you if you're a teacher.
Insegnante. Insegnante. Insegnante.
Say, no, I'm not a teacher. I'm a student. Ready?
No, non sono insegnante, sono studentessa.
No, I'm not a teacher. I'm a student.
No, non sono insegnante, sono studentessa.
In Italian, some occupations have the same word for both genders. For example,
Insegnante. Insegnante. Insegnante.
however, much of the time, words will differ depending on gender. In general, nouns that end in O tend to be masculine, while nouns that end in A tend to be feminine. Let's look at some more examples. Listen and repeat, or speak along with the native speakers.
No, non sono studente. Sono investitore. No, non sono studente. Sono investitore.
No, non sono insegnante, sono studentessa. No, non sono insegnante, sono studentessa.
No, non sono insegnante. Sono ingegnere. No, non sono insegnante. Sono ingegnere.
No, non sono infermiera. Sono medico. No, non sono infermiera. Sono medico.
No, non sono studente, sono insegnante. No, non sono studente, sono insegnante.
No, sono barista. No, sono barista.
Did you notice how the last speaker omits part of the response?
No, sono barista.
No, I'm a barista.
No, sono barista.
When directly responding to someone's question, it's often possible to omit part of the response. Here, by simply answering
No,
no, there's no need to say,
non sono studentessa.
I'm not a student. This pattern is
No, sono
actual occupation. No, I'm actual occupation.
No, sono
Actual occupation. You should be aware of this, but for this lesson, we'll use the pattern
No, non sono
occupation,
sono
actual occupation. No, I'm not occupation. I'm actual occupation.
No, non sono
Occupation,
sono
actual occupation. Let's review the key vocabulary. Student,
studente. Studente. Studentessa. Studentessa. Insegnante.
teacher,
Insegnante. Insegnante. Ingegnere.
engineer,
Ingegnere. Ingegnere.
nurse,
Infermiere. Infermiere. Infermiera. Infermiera. Medico.
doctor,
Medico. Medico. Barista.
barista,
Barista. Barista.
Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how Paolo says investor? Investitore. Investitore. And how Paolo says I'm an investor? Sono investitore. Sono investitore. Do you remember how Paolo says student? Studente. Studente. And how to say not? Non. Non. Do you remember how Paolo says, I'm not a student? Non sono studente. Non sono studente. Do you remember how Paolo Parisi says, I'm not a student, I'm an investor?
Non sono studente, sono investitore.
Non sono studente, sono investitore. Do you remember how Mark Lee asks, Are you a student? Remember, Mark uses formal Italian.
È studente?
È studente? Do you remember the word for a female student? Studentessa. Studentessa. And the word for teacher. Insegnante. Insegnante. Do you remember the word for engineer? Ingegnere. Ingegnere.
Let's practice. Imagine you're Mark Lee and you're an engineer. Respond to Paolo's question. Ready?
È insegnante?
No, non sono insegnante, sono ingegnere.
Listen again and repeat.
No, non sono insegnante, sono ingegnere. No, non sono insegnante, sono ingegnere.
Let's try another. Imagine you're Felice Angelini and you're a teacher. Ready?
È studente?
No, non sono studente, sono insegnante.
Listen again and repeat.
No, non sono studente, sono insegnante. No, non sono studente, sono insegnante.
Let's try one more. Now imagine you're Emma Esposito and you're a student. Ready?
È insegnante?
No, non sono insegnante, sono studentessa.
Listen again and repeat.
No, non sono insegnante, sono studentessa. No, non sono insegnante, sono studentessa.
This is the end of this lesson.
Remember, these can-do lessons are about learning practical language skills. What's next? Show us what you can do. When you're ready, take your assessment. You can take it again and again, so try anytime you like. Our teachers will assess it and give you your results.
Well done! Now you know how to talk about your occupation in Italian. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson. This is the end of this lesson.
Now, here's what you can do to cement this conversation in your head. Review the conversation with our dialogue tool and lesson transcripts. Study the key words and phrases with our spaced repetition flashcards. Review the key grammar and cultural tips inside the lesson notes. And test yourself with our assessment tests. So click the link in the description right now and sign up for your free lifetime account to access our Can-Do course.
Well done! Now you know how to talk about your occupation in Italian. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson.
Hi, welcome to Introduction to Italian. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Marika. In this series, you will learn everything you need to know to get started learning Italian.
That's right, and we're here to help guide you through your journey. In this lesson, you'll learn the reasons why you should learn Italian and how to get started.
There are countless reasons, but perhaps the biggest one of all is that it could actually change your life. Learning a new language unlocks new pathways that are off limits to you now. There are certain things that you simply cannot do without having the technical or cultural skills that come from learning a new language.
Like working or living in another country.
Knowing another language provides you with greater job opportunities. You have the freedom to move to another country halfway around the world and be able to earn a living, or even better yet, build a career from it, instead of just being stuck in one place. Language allows you to visit or live in places that you may never have even considered going, simply because that wasn't a possibility for you. Knowing another language simply gives you more options to choose from.
And learning a new language also helps you to be more open-minded and see the world from a new perspective.
Language and culture go hand in hand. The world is a big place, and by broadening your understanding of other cultures, it allows you to be more empathetic and understanding of the many different ways that people live their lives. With language, you're able to see and experience more, which helps you to grow as a person.
Learning a new language also improves your memory.
Several studies have consistently shown that those who study another language have improved memory, as opposed to those who didn't learn another language. Learning another language also keeps your brain healthy by significantly delaying the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. This difference can be as much as 4 to 5 more years of quality life.
And those are just some of the reasons you should learn another language. The list just goes on and on.
Now you know the benefits of studying another language, but why should you learn Italian in particular?
Italy has a lot to offer. Landscapes, cities, ancient monuments, stunning coastlines. You'll need plenty of time to see them all. And if you learn Italian, your experience will be much more rewarding.
Italy has 51 World Heritage Sites. That's more than any other country in the world. Tourism is one of Italy's most profitable industries. Despite this, English is not widely spoken outside the main tourist centers. Rome, Venice, Florence, and other big cities are a must-visit. But if you speak Italian, your experience will be that much more authentic, and you'll be able to take trips to lesser-known cities and cultural sites.
A city like Urbino isn't a crowded tourist destination, but it's definitely unique. It's a walled city perched on a hill in a market region. It was an important Renaissance center, and the Ducal Palace is definitely worth a visit. Italian people are generally friendly, and making an effort to learn the language will significantly improve your chances of making friends.
Italy's long history is evident in the architectural styles of many buildings, churches, castles, and its art. Not to mention it's the birthplace of the Renaissance, of opera, of Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Dante, and more.
Let's not forget the food. Have you ever heard of pizza, pasta, or spaghetti? Well, they are all Italian foods.
Italian cuisine is one of the most popular cuisines in the world. It's extremely rich and varies from region to region. If you know the language, you can easily read the menu and enjoy different types of Italian dishes. There's much more to discover than just pizza and pasta.
Of course, it's not all just about food. What about business opportunities?
Italy is a highly developed country with a dynamic economy. It's the world's second largest wine producer and the fourth largest manufacturing country. Italian production is renowned all around the world for its high-quality creative goods.
Major Italian industries include fashion, cars, jewelry, and of course, food. Ferrari, Prada, Gucci, and Armani are just some examples of well-known Italian brands. And Milan Fashion Week is one of the 4 leading fashion events internationally. Thousands of companies all over the world do business with Italy. So, learning Italian will open up many opportunities for you.
Okay, so there are clearly many reasons why you should learn Italian. Now we've talked about why you should start learning a language and why you should start learning Italian, but how should the viewers get started?
Getting started is actually very simple. Just start by learning your first word in Italian and build up from there.
The good news, though, is that you already know some Italian.
Cappuccino, gelato, maestro.
These are all English words of Italian origin. The reverse also applies. Nowadays, Italian speakers use a lot of English words in everyday conversation.
Babysitter, gossip, meeting.
Many English and Italian words are derived from Latin. This means that there will be many words you'll be able to easily recognize.
Originale, turista, televisione. See, they're very similar. Now, let's teach you something useful. Grazie. This means thank you in Italian.
That's a very versatile phrase. It could be used in all types of situations, both formal and informal.
Grazie. A very common mistake many learners make when pronouncing this word is that they don't pronounce the final E clearly. Listen closely to how I pronounce this word. Grazie, grazie.
Another aspect that can be difficult for beginners is learning how to roll the R.
Grazie.
In the next lesson, we'll give you an in-depth explanation on Italian pronunciation so that you can perfect this simple but useful phrase.
Grazie.
Well done! Now you know how to say thank you in Italian. We've covered a lot of things already, so why don't we wrap up the first lesson and recap on what we've learned. In this lesson, you learned that studying another language has many benefits, such as providing new job and business opportunities. Italy has a colorful history with many things for you to see and learn. And to say thank you in Italian, it's
grazie.
In the next lesson, we're going to take a look at the sounds of Italian and Italian pronunciation. So be sure to watch the next video. See you in the next lesson. Bye!
Bye!
Hi! Welcome to Introduction to Italian. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Marika.
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Italian pronunciation. Italian is what is called a syllable-timed language. What this simply means is that every syllable is pronounced for roughly an equal amount of time.
Avranno. Avranno.
Notice how each syllable is pronounced for roughly the same amount of time? The first N is held for roughly the same amount of time as all the other syllables.
Avranno.
English, on the other hand, is a stress-timed language. Unstressed syllables are often shortened, while stressed syllables are pronounced longer. Opportunity. Opportunity. The stressed syllable to in opportunity is pronounced longer than all the other syllables. Listen to it again. Opportunity. Compare this once again to the syllables in Italian.
Avranno.
Even though Italian is not a stress-timed language, individual words still have primary stress.
In most Italian words, the stress falls on the second to last syllable, so you'll need to pronounce this a tiny bit longer and louder than the other syllables, but not by much. Avranno. Buongiorno.
Apart from the stressed syllable, all other syllables are pronounced for roughly an equal amount of time. One of the biggest differences between English and Italian pronunciation is that Italian is largely phonetic, meaning most words are pronounced as they are written. This makes learning Italian much simpler than learning English, for example. For the most part, English and Italian share the same consonant and vowel sounds.
I, U, B, D, F, M.
In fact, 75% of all sounds in Italian are similar to English, so most of these sounds will be familiar to you. Some sounds, however, will be quite new. The good news, though, is that these will be very limited.
E, Z, I.
Let's briefly take a look at some of the unique sounds of Italian. First, let's start with the vowels. There are 5 vowels in Italian: A, E, I, O, and U. The vowels A, I, and U will always be pronounced in the same way.
A, I, U.
These sounds should be relatively easy for you to duplicate. The vowels E and O, however, will be a little more challenging. They each have 2 variant sounds, one open version and one closed version. The open version requires you to open your mouth wide, while the closed version is pronounced more narrowly. Compare the open E followed by a closed E.
E, E. E, E.
Now the open O followed by the closed O.
O, O. O, O.
Even when there are 2 or more vowels in a row, just pronounce them separately.
Aereo.
Okay, now let's move on to the consonants. How would you pronounce this word in Italian?
Spaghetti. Spaghetti.
Despite not knowing Italian pronunciation, the chances are that your pronunciations of the S, P, and G consonants were spot on. Most consonants you encounter shouldn't be too difficult for you to pronounce.
Some consonants, like the rolled R sound in Italian, however, will be more challenging. Do you remember how to pronounce this word? We taught you this word in the previous lesson. It's pronounced grazie.
This word uses the rolled R sound.
Grazie.
To pronounce this sound, place the tip of your tongue on the gum ridge behind your upper teeth, just like you do when you want to say the English D sound. Then relax your tongue and blow out air.
R.
Concentrate the air pressure at the tip of your tongue and gum ridge. The air will push your tongue away from the gum ridge. When this happens, try to force your tongue back into position. This should all happen very quickly.
R.
One useful trick is to flip your tongue up and back against the gum ridge the very moment you feel the air begin to push through.
R. R. Grazie. Grazie.
Well done! This is a challenging sound, so don't be too hard on yourself if you didn't get it. Another significant aspect of Italian pronunciation is the pronunciation of double consonants. Unlike English, double consonants must be pronounced clearly and held for longer periods of time in Italian. Failure to do so could result in miscommunication.
Pala. Palla.
Remember how Italian is a syllable-timed language? Imagine that you're holding that consonant sound for one extra syllable.
Palla. Palla.
Many learners do not hold the sound for long enough, so when in doubt, pronounce it a little longer than you would normally.
Okay, let's recap what we've learned in this lesson.
In this lesson, you learned that Italian is a syllable-timed language, where syllables are pronounced for roughly an equal amount of time. Italian pronunciation is very regular, so most words are pronounced as they're spelled. Collectively, nearly all sounds in Italian are identical to English, and there are only a handful of new sounds that you need to learn. And finally, double consonants are an important aspect of Italian pronunciation which you need to look out for. We've covered only the basics of Italian pronunciation. If you're interested in learning more, check out the entire course we created named The Ultimate Guide to Italian Pronunciation. In that course, we cover and break down every single sound in the Italian language, showing you mouth and tongue positioning and giving you tips to help you perfect your Italian pronunciation. In the next lesson, we'll introduce you to the basics of Italian grammar, where you'll learn about Italian word order and how to build basic phrases in Italian. See you in the next lesson. Bye!
Bye!
Hi! Welcome to Introduction to Italian. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Marika.
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Italian grammar. Word order refers to the order in which words are structured to form a sentence in a given language. Consider the English sentence, I ate an apple. But first, let's remove the article an here for simplicity. So we're just left with I ate apple. The basic word order for English is subject, verb, object, or SVO for short. If we break down the English sentence, I ate apple, we can see that the subject I is presented first, followed by the verb ate, and then finally the object apple is positioned last. This is the basic word order for sentences in English.
Now, let's compare that same sentence, I ate an apple, in Italian. Io ho mangiato una mela. Like before, let's remove the article to keep it simple, so we are just left with the words. If we break down the Italian sentence, we get the subject io, meaning I, then comes the verb ho mangiato, meaning ate, and finally we have the object mela, meaning apple. The basic word order for Italian then is SBO. It's the same as English.
This means that you can convert an English sentence into Italian simply by replacing the English words with Italian words, and you'll still be understood.
Italian word order, however, is much more flexible than English. If we swapped the subject and object around, we'd get apple ate I in English, which changes the meaning of the sentence completely. In Italian, however, the core meaning of the sentence does not change. It would still essentially be I ate apple. Mela ho mangiato io.
As you can see, the word order of Italian is quite flexible.
More often than not, if you wanted to say I ate an apple in Italian, you would not say
Io ho mangiato una mela.
Instead, you would more likely say ate an apple in Italian.
Ho mangiato una mela. This is because Italian is a null subject language where the word for the pronoun is omitted because it's already implied.
This is because all of the information can be derived from the way the verb is conjugated in the sentence.
For example, the verb aprire means to open. When you conjugate it, it changes according to the subject. Hai aperto la scatola means you opened the box. Hanno aperto la scatola means they opened the box. Let's take a look at another example. Tornare means to return. Siamo tornati a casa in treno means we return home by train. Sono tornata a casa in treno means I return home by train.
Can you see how the subject changes based on the way the verb is conjugated in the sentence?
Okay, let's move on. Negating a sentence in Italian is incredibly simple. All you have to do is to put the word non in front of the verb.
Let's go back to the original example, I ate an apple. The verb here is ate, or
Ho mangiato. In Italian, ho mangiato una mela. To make this sentence negative, simply add non before the verb ho mangiato. Non ho mangiato una mela.
If it were Carla ate an apple, it would be
Carla ha mangiato una mela. Adding non before the verb would make it negative. Carla non ha mangiato una mela. Siamo tornati a casa in treno. Non siamo tornati a casa in treno. You can create any negative sentence in Italian simply by adding non before the verb.
Asking a question in Italian is even easier than making it negative. All you have to do is simply raise the pitch at the end of a sentence to turn it into a question.
Hai aperto la scatola. Hai aperto la scatola?
No rearranging of words is needed.
Hai aperto la scatola. Hai aperto la scatola?
You can create any basic yes-no questions in Italian this way.
If you want to be a little more specific, simply add the question word in front of the question. For example, perché means why. Perché hai aperto la scatola? Quando means when. Quando hai aperto la scatola? And come means how. Come hai aperto la scatola?
Now you know how to create questions in Italian. Well done! We've covered a lot of things in this lesson, so let's recap what we've learned. In this lesson, you learned that Italian sentences can be formed using a subject, verb, object, or SVO word order. Italian tends to omit the subject if that subject is a pronoun. You make a sentence negative by adding non before the verb. To turn a sentence into a question, simply raise your pitch at the end. And if you want to be more specific, just add a question word at the beginning of the question. We've covered only the very basics of Italian grammar. If you're interested in learning more, check out our Italian in 3 Minutes video series. In that course, we teach you useful phrases while covering the fundamentals of Italian grammar, and each lesson is only 3 minutes long. In the next lesson, we'll introduce you to the basics of Italian writing. See you in the next lesson. Bye!
Bye!
Hi! Welcome to Introduction to Italian. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Marika.
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Italian writing. Both English and Italian use the Latin alphabet. Unlike English, however, Italian only uses a select number of letters.
The Italian alphabet has 21 letters. 5 of them are vowels and 16 are consonants. Compared to English's 26, you have 5 fewer letters to worry about.
Missing are the letters J, K, W, X, and Y. They're all considered to be foreign letters in Italian, and are only used for words borrowed from other languages.
The most common examples are jeans, password, relax, yoga, and extra.
An accent is a marker that is used to indicate some additional quality. That being said, accents aren't as intimidating as they look. They actually help you more than anything.
There are two types of accents used in Italian. The grave accent, which looks like a line falling from left to right, and the acute accent, which looks like a line rising from left to right.
The grave accent can only appear over vowels. Any vowel that appears at the end of a word can have a grave accent.
Città, caffè, lunedì, falò, giù.
The grave accent, then, actually takes away the ambiguity from where to place the stress. It's essentially telling you to stress this vowel.
So, whenever you see the grave accent in Italian, just stress that syllable.
If the vowel at the end is an E and it has the grave accent on top, it's indicating that we should pronounce it as an open E. And of course, we must stress the syllable.
Tè, caffè, è.
The other accent is the acute accent, and it's used to indicate that we should pronounce it as a closed E.
Perché, finché.
The acute accent can only appear over the vowel E, and only when it's at the end of a word. Vowels that are not at the end of a word are rarely marked with an accent outside of dictionaries.
When this happens, however, it's used to help the reader distinguish between two words which would otherwise appear the same. Ancora, ancora. Principi, principi.
Now you know the function of accents in Italian. Another important element to Italian writing is learning when to use capital letters, as they differ from English quite a bit.
Generally, words in Italian aren't capitalized nearly as much as English.
For example, days, months, and languages are capitalized in English, but not in Italian.
So we simply write lunedì, martedì, aprile, maggio, inglese, italiano.
Capital letters are only generally used at the beginning of a sentence or with proper nouns.
A proper noun can be the name of a person, like Rita, but also the name of a place, like Venezia or Montebianco.
Okay, let's wrap up this lesson by recapping what we've learned. In this lesson, you learned that the standard Italian alphabet consists of 21 letters. You also learned that the grave accent can appear over any vowel at the end of a word and is used to indicate that the syllable must be stressed. When the grave accent appears on the letter E, you must use an open pronunciation. When the acute accent is used, it'll only appear over the letter E, indicating that you must use a closed pronunciation. Finally, Italian only uses capitalization at the beginning of a sentence and with proper nouns. In the next lesson, you'll be entering Italian Boot Camp, where you'll learn useful beginner phrases to get you speaking Italian right away. See you in the next lesson. Bye!
Bye!
Expand your vocabulary with our Core 2000 Words ebook. It's free and packed with essential expressions that you'll use on a daily basis. Start building your vocabulary today. Click the link in the description below to download your free Italian ebook before it's gone.